There were peaceful protests around this world against him because he is a problem. And so you never should have somebody that is sitting that high and is going to sit up here and threaten a sitting member of Congress when she knew good and well, if she watched the entire thing, that I specifically told protesters to make sure you consult with lawyers, just like I've told protesters over and over and over in the history of me advising people to go out and exercise their constitutional right. The fact that there are other sitting members that have received letters of threat from this new DOJ tells me that they are about retribution and they are not about following the law.
Tempers erupted. Legal fire crossed into political theater. Today we break down a sharp confrontation between Attorney General Pam Bondi and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, one that touches on protest, free speech, executive power, and accountability. What began as a debate over a protest movement spiraled into a high-stakes showdown over authority, rhetoric, and the limits of dissent. Let's unpack what was said, what's at stake, and what it might mean going forward.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And I first just want to begin with a news alert. Guess what? Joe Biden is not the president anymore. So maybe we can move on. Maybe we can move into the present because it seems like we are living in the past. And listen, these are not the good old days, you know, like you used to sit around and your grandparents would talk to you about what used to happen. What we need to be talking about is how we are going to legislate, because I think that some of my colleagues have confused what our jobs are. And I get that we're sitting in judiciary. And so it may seem as if we are here to be litigators, but we are here to be legislators, which means that we are supposed to be writing laws, not trying to have our own trials and determine whether or not something is true or not, or whatever the case is, or who should be sued, who shouldn't be sued. All I know is that a great American hero, a good senator out of New Jersey, said something to the effect yesterday as he was shattering the record for holding the floor, a record that had been held by another racist in this country. So when we have, and I'm gonna be clear, because I had remarks and I'm going a whole other way. To have the sitting attorney general go on, and I'm gonna call it faux news. I know some of y'all love it, but it's fake to me. To have her go on Fox News and to then decide that she wanted to send a threat to me, it was wrong. Because here it is, she is the highest law enforcement agent in this country, and people are watching and they are consuming this information and they are believing that simply because I decided that I wanted to exercise my right to free speech, which I am not abridged from doing, that she then wanted to then politicize something that should not be politicized. I don't like Elon Musk. I'm gonna say it 50,000 times. I don't like him. I don't like that he going out there and he firing people. I think that he's a crook because somehow the rest of us can't sit around and get whatever federal contracts we want. The rest of us can't sit around and get law enforcement and get them somehow ordained as federal law enforcement to protect him. The rest of us can't get our dealerships protected by the federal government. That is somebody that is operating above the law. For whatever reason, just because he has a lot of money, more money than everybody else. And yes, I am happy to see that on my birthday, which is what I said, there were peaceful protests around this world against him because he is a problem. And so you never should have somebody that is sitting that high and is going to sit up here and threaten a sitting member of Congress when she knew good and well, if she watched the entire thing, that I specifically told protesters to make sure you consult with lawyers, just like I've told protesters over and over and over in the history of me advising people to go out and exercise their constitutional right. The fact that there are other sitting members that have received letters of threat from this new DOJ tells me that they are about retribution and they are not about following the law. The reason that our party, or I won't even say our party, our country is torn apart is because we can't even agree on right versus wrong. This should not be left versus right. The only thing that we're asking is that we have law enforcement that will show up when there is an actual crime. If somebody calls and says, hey, I need you to investigate this cyber crime, or I need you to investigate this child pornography, or I need you to investigate this robbery, then we want somebody to show up, and we don't want them to look at us and act as if just because I'm black or because I'm woman, that I am not worthy of having that case investigated, because we have an administration that is continuously railing against diversity, equity, and inclusion, or we don't need people that show up that feel like diversity should not be valued. That is why we should have somebody that may show up and looks like me. The final thing that I'll say, because you've been gracious, is this. When I first became a public defender, I had no criminal defense experience. And I walked in and I told my boss, Charlie, I said, listen, you should hire me. He said, why? I said, because I'm black. Charlie looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, let me tell you something. When I walk in, I'm going to walk in with a level of rapport and understanding that maybe some of my other colleagues will not. Charlie offered me my job and I worked my butt off and I worked really, really hard for all of my clients, not just those that look like me. And that is what it looks like to serve. Thank you.
Pam Bondi currently serves as the United States Attorney General since February 2025. Jasmine Crockett, a Democratic U.S. representative from Texas, sits on oversight committees and has become a vocal critic of powerful figures and institutions. The confrontation centers on comments Crockett made supporting a Tesla takedown protest movement targeting Elon Musk's influence in corporate holdings. Bondi responded publicly, warning Crockett she should tread carefully, stating that nothing will happen to Elon Musk and that the Justice Department would protect Tesla interests. Thus, the clash brings together free speech, protest rights, corporate power, and executive authority. Crockett's position. During a virtual rally tied to the Tesla takedown movement, Crockett said on her birthday, "All I want is for Elon to be taken down." She later clarified that this was rhetorical, supporting nonviolent protest and insisting she had not advocated violence. She also criticized the Bondi DOJ for turning a blind eye to certain political violence, such as January 6th, while threatening others. Drawing a contrast in enforcement rhetoric, Bondi's response on Fox News, Sunday Morning Futures, Bondi cautioned Crockett to tread very carefully. As an elected official, her words carry weight. Bondi asserted that Tesla owners and the company would be protected, that federal charges could follow if protest actions cross into property destruction or violence. Bondi framed some recent attacks on Tesla dealerships and infrastructure as domestic terrorism, indicating the DOJ would not come off these charges. So the tone. Crockett pushes back that her calls are peaceful and rhetorical. Bondi warns of legal consequences and asserts government protective duties. Let's dig deeper into the legal and political dynamics. U.S. law generally protects peaceful protest and dissenting speech, even if harsh or rhetorical, as long as it does not incite imminent lawless action. Brandenburg test. Crockett's claim of nonviolence places her on constitutional ground, but public perception, provocative language, and association with protest movements complicate things. The DOJ and executive branch have wide discretion in whether and how to enforce laws around property damage, vandalism, or threats. Bondi's statements about protecting Tesla owners and warning of federal charges reflect how prosecutors may use deterrent rhetoric, sometimes ahead of actual investigations. Bondi's public admonition to a legislator is unusual. It sends a message about whose speech may cross lines. Meanwhile, Crockett frames the response as part of a broader pattern that the government tolerates or excuses certain violent acts, e.g., January 6th, but threatens others tied to dissent. This contrast resonates politically. Bondi's threat of treading carefully could be seen as chilling free speech if over-applied. But she may argue it's her duty to ensure protests remain lawful and do not enter criminal conduct. The question is, when does government warning become intimidation of critics? For Crockett, standing firm can rally her supporters who view this as defending free speech. For Bondi, harsh rhetoric may deter protest escalation, but it also invites scrutiny about motive and fairness. If this dynamic becomes normalized, lawmakers may fear DOJ retaliation for criticism. We don't see yet a concrete DOJ investigation or charges against Crockett or her associates. It's unclear whether Bondi's warnings are legal posturing or signals tied to real internal enforcement plans. Media effects. How this is framed publicly will shape public opinion more than legal technicalities. In this showdown, both sides hold rhetorical guns. Crockett claims the mantle of protest. Bondi wields the authority of enforcement. The clash illustrates one of modern democracy's enduring tensions. How to protect dissent while preserving the rule of law. We'll be watching. Will the DOJ back up the public warnings with action? Will Crockett's rhetoric be deemed protected speech or push that line? And will this exchange influence how future protests are policed politically? Here's a question for you, watching now. When an elected lawmaker sharply criticizes powerful corporate interests, should the Attorney General publicly warn them, or step back and let the courts decide?